Sensitives and empaths have spent years believing that their difficult lives, challenging situations have meant that something went wrong. This is one of the lies. Nothing was ever wrong with you. Your sensitivity was showing you what cannot go forward into a very different and a much more humane world. And this part, what has to be lived instead. The relationships where you kept saying yes when everything in you was screaming no, the systems that made no sense, the places where love had conditions, the moments where power became control instead of support. These were not random experiences. They were raw material. And I'm going to show you today how the life that never really made sense was preparing you for exactly what you're here to embody and create. Because the question is not what's wrong with me or even what am I doing wrong? The question is, what has my life been preparing me to step into? And that's what's happening now. If you're new here, I'm Wanda Vitale, and this is the Reality Architects. Here we talk about our different wiring and ways of processing life when you're a highly sensitive person or empath. We look at how to stop forcing ourselves and how to stop this whole healing thing that we've been brainwashed to think we need to do, and how to create from the way that we are actually wired. So what do I see in sessions? I have gotten to meet so many of you on discovery calls and in private sessions, and generally people show up asking things like, what am I doing wrong? Why has my life been like this? Does it ever end? Why has nothing worked? I've just done so much stuff. Why don't I fit? Right? Why do I feel so alone? And I hear this. I know I'm here for something more. I've always known that, but I don't really know what it is. And gee, so far my life just looks like a train wreck. When I look more deeply into everyone's blueprint, the tools that I use, your astrology chart and a couple of other things, there's a consistent pattern. Different systems, different people, but it's the same message. The life that looked random from the outside is anything but random. That sensitivity is pointing somewhere very specific. And the places where they never fit in were because they were never supposed to fit in. It's all pointing to something specific. Stay with me here, because this is where the story gets bigger than just one person's life. And I really want you to know this. It's why I was excited to record this video. In 1999, Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon and has been since the 80s, co-authored a book with Jan Tober, and it was about the Indigo children. Indigo children were born in the roughly late 1950s through the early 2010s. There are other generations. I think the one that's next after this is Crystal group. But today I want to talk about the Indigos, because so many of you now are at this point in your lives where you're here to do the thing that you're designed to do, the very reason that you came in as an indigo. What is that? Well, you came in wired to question old systems, not to just take things for granted. You are not the people who say, well, we've always done it this way. What's the problem? You came in to question everything. Does it work? Does it not work? What would work instead of this? You're not here, if you're an indigo, to settle with power over systems, with control, and with false authority. Do what I say because I said so. You're not here for that. You know that. I see that in the comments. You guys are here to just stir things up. And this is what I want you to know. You're here to first embody something different. And then you're here to do something with it, to create something different. And it's different for all of you. Doing could be being the quiet one in the room. Doing could be writing a book. One of my clients has just finished her second book. Could be an artist, could be teaching, could be anything. You just being consciously, being the person who embodies this new world is doing as well. But here is also what I want you to know, because this is where people get hung up. You came in with a template. It's inside you, that template for something new that the world has never seen. And that's why you doubt it. You came in, though, first to experience the existing landscape from the inside, not to read a book about it, but you came to experience it. Systems built on fear, power imbalances, narcissism. Most of us, including me, got tangled up with a narcissistic partner. That's a power over paradigm. It's saying yes when we meant no. It's all those things that empaths do. But we had to experience it firsthand. Maybe it's selfishness. We came in to know what it feels like to be controlled, the dynamics of control, old rules. I hear that from so many of you in the comments. How can you create new rules until you know what the old ones really are? That's what your life has been about. You're not yes people. You just didn't come in to say, oh, well, let's just create something new. I think this will be it. You literally came in to experience from the ground up in your body, in every way that you needed to know what didn't work. You're here to know it from the inside. Not because somebody said so, but because you know, and that is so powerful. But here's another thing that your life showed you. This is so important. Another thing that I see in every session, that the experiences in your lives, the train wrecks, the things that didn't work, that were never meant to work, the really hard things. Some of you have experienced hard things like I did. It showed us what needed to be lived instead. Maybe it's courageousness, resilience, compassion, kindness, gentleness. Whatever it is for you, it has shown you what needs to go into the new world and what people need to embody. And once you start to look at your life this way, you're no longer the victim. You start to look at it like it was the education that I needed. I've talked to so many of you amazing people, and you ultimately are here to change everything. Cultures that have never been questioned, companies, money, everything. So do you see why it's so important to look at your life as this brilliant builder of a new world that starts in your own life first? You have genius that I certainly don't have. I am amazed at what all of you are here to bring to the world. For some of you, here to work with the collective, on a large scale. For some of you, it's one-on-one. For some of you, it's very quiet. It's so different for each of you, but it's your template. I want to talk about that here coming up. But I want to talk about the education because it's so easy to think this should not have happened. Why am I not like them? I used to think like that. Why does my best friend have such an easy life? I didn't have an easy life. If you grew up where love had conditions, where there were strings attached, if you did the right thing or said the right thing, you know what love is not. And you know why real love matters. You know what it is. You can spot the fake love or conditional love 10 miles away because you know the difference. If you had to stay quiet to keep the peace when you were a kid, you know what it costs you to lose your voice. You know that truth matters. And especially now in a world that's changing so rapidly, why it's important for everyone to speak up. If you were the black sheep, like many of us were in rooms that you could tell what everybody was feeling. You just knew. Nobody had to tell you. You could feel it. You could feel the sadness, or you could feel the fear. You could feel when somebody was lying. But everybody pretended that everything was just fine. You know what it costs to ignore what you feel, to ignore your truth. You know why honesty matters. If you kept saying yes when everything in you wanted to say no, then you know what happens when you learn not to trust yourself. And you know why that self-trust matters. That's why so many of you just naturally loop into your head, because you never learned to trust yourself. So this is such important stuff that all of you have learned, whether you realize it or not. Life has been teaching you so many things: how to stay steady, how to feel deeply without disappearing. And this is a big one: how to keep your heart open without letting the world and its bitterness and hardness shut you down. Do you see why this is so important? Life has been teaching you in many different ways how to become unflappable, how to not be hard, to not shut down, to not numb out. That's what being unflappable is like. The life that never felt good or didn't look like somebody else's life, that had fewer challenges, was an education. And this is where your sensitivity fits in and really starts to make sense. We're empaths. We feel everything. We don't filter. We feel it all. And some of you would say you feel too much. But this is where it's a superpower. You automatically notice what other people override or don't notice. We notice when words and action don't match. And we notice it all. We notice when a role or a job or a relationship has no life in it anymore. It just feels off, numb. But without this larger frame of why you feel it all, what it's for, our minds try to explain it from who we learn to be. So we go into self-doubt. Well, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I am too much. I hear that one from clients. Maybe I should just be grateful for what I have. And maybe I just need to work harder. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. That's not the problem. we go into self-blame, but it's not because we did anything wrong, or it's not because we're sensitive. It's because we have believed that we're the victim role. No one told us that we're inserting ourselves into the dark underbelly of the human condition to understand what needed to be changed. That's what's really going on. But no one told us that. This is what I want you to know. We are wired to notice what can't be carried forward. We were never wired to fit in, not ever. That's the problem for most of us. As a little kid, we say something is wrong with me because I'm not like them. I don't fit in. That's why I just want to shout this from the rooftops. You were never meant to fit in. You are not wired for this current reality that we're in now. You're wired for a new one that hasn't materialized yet. And this is what I want all of you to know. You're here to bring the new world in. It comes through you first. You're just ahead of the masses. You were never meant to fit in, and it's not a problem. It's your function. And it's what's being activated in you right now as the world is accelerating and changing. In the last video, we looked at this through the old role and a new role. I'll post the link to that video below this one. And this is where all this becomes very practical. There is a threshold of who am I being? Am I being the version of me who doesn't fit in? Am I being the version of me who says, well, of course I don't fit in. I'm here for a new world, and it gets birthed through me. There is a threshold when the energy of the real you that's coming through right now, the energy of your soul, is activating your template. And these old patterns, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm powerless. The part that you had to immerse yourself in to understand why they didn't work, that's being activated. And we are being given a choice. We don't have to do this. This is the free will part. But there is a moment that I call the threshold when we can keep reacting to life as a survivor. Life is happening to me. The self-doubt, the overwhelm, the I don't know. Or we can realize, I know what this is. This is a choice point. In that threshold, what feels familiar or normal is what your response will be. It could come up as I don't know. It could come up as overwhelm or just numbness. But this is really the old role, the old identity that I talked about in the last video, where it immediately responds and we get to choose. This is the threshold moment. It's when we remember to ask, wait a minute, I know what this is all about. I know why this is happening. How is this here to serve me? Do I want more of this in my life? This, whatever I'm experiencing, if it's discomfort? Or if I don't, what do I want more of? What's the opposite of this? And then the bigger question is, who am I being now? Old roles that we learned, the survivor, the victim, or I'm here to embody the version of me that has learned to be more compassionate, more loving, that refuses to settle. Who am I being? That's the question. and stay with me, because there's another lie that keeps people standing at the edge of the life calling them. And here's the other lie, that there's something to figure out. There isn't. You came in with a template inside you. Your life has been the activation and the education and the path and the plan of what you're here to do or be, or do both, are already part of that template. And now it's just one step at a time, nothing to figure out, one idea at a time, one moment at a time. So when something feels uncomfortable or overwhelming or just really not what you want, just pause and ask, how is this here to serve me? So when something feels uncomfortable or wrong, or it's something that you just don't want, just pause before you label it or before you go into a story about it, and just ask, how is this here to serve me? Because it is. Is this part of my education? Well, if I don't want this, what do I want instead of this? And then go there. Feel that. You're an empath. You're sensitive. You're wired to feel deeply. When you let yourself do that, it's one of your superpowers. It's why when you understand how creation works, manifestation works with your wiring, you're made for it. This is what we work with inside the Threshold. The Threshold is a 5-week live group. Everything's recorded, lifetime access. We're going to work with that exact moment when something new is calling and an old pattern wants to take over. That moment is when everything becomes possible, and you are able to choose what you prefer and step into a life that is drastically different. I'll put the link below. Enrollment is open. Thanks for listening, guys.